This is the Mac Classic. It was released by Apple in the fall of 1990 as their first sub-$1,000 computer. Although not popular with the public, it did gain traction in the education market. It was part of Apple's Compact Mac series, which focused on creating computers in smaller footprints. The small beige box had a friendly yet familiar aesthetic that took design cues from Apple's original 1984 Macintosh. The specifications on the Mac Classic aren't all that good. Because it was Apple's budget-oriented Mac, it ended up reusing a lot of the components from older Macs. The CPU was Motorola's 68000 at 8 MHz. This CPU is almost identical to the one used in the original 1984 Macintosh. The Mac Classic came with 1 MB of RAM stock, but you could upgrade it to 4 through an expansion card. The display on the Mac Classic was a 9-inch monochrome CRT display with 512 by 342 pixels. This is identical to the display used on the original 1984 Mac. And this Mac Classic does have the optional upgrade of the 40 MB hard drive. The operating system of the Mac Classic was Apple's System 6. It could later be upgraded to Apple's System 7, but would eventually lose support in the late 90s. The port selection on the rear of the Mac Classic wasn't all that bad. You had a headphone jack, a modem port, a printer port, an external floppy port, an external hard drive port, and then Apple's desktop bus port. Apple's desktop bus port should seem a little bit familiar. Apple intended that you pass the mouse's signal through the keyboard into the back of the Mac Classic. This would be actually a common practice on tons of Macs developed years after the Mac Classic. I think that the impact of the original Mac Classic is far more than the specs on paper. I think it's a computer that really did embody the envisionment of the original Mac to create a computer for the rest of us. The Mac Classic was ubiquitous in educational institutions and schools. People may have grown up typing and learning, drawing, and writing on a Mac Classic. This is far more valuable than the fact that it had old hardware and a pretty shitty screen. I think it has earned its place in history and earned the title of classic for being one of the best representations of Apple's intention to create a computer for people to make, create, and enjoy.